I'd like you to follow my train of thought, please. Just give me probably 10 minutes. So the first story I want to get to is the UN voting today to impose fresh sanctions over the missile tests on North Korea. So the US drafted resolution includes measures to reduce the nation's petrol imports by up to 90%. China and Russia, North Korea's main trading partners, voted in favor of the resolution. The country is already subject to a raft of sanctions from the US, the UN, and the EU. Washington has been imposing sanctions on Pyongyang since 2008, freezing the assets of individuals and companies linked to its nuclear program and banning the export of goods and services to the country. The US ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, said the sanctions send an unambiguous message to Pyongyang that further defiance will invite further punishments and isolation. The new sanctions are deliveries of petrol products will be capped at 500,000 barrels a year and crude oil at 4 million barrels per year. Sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. All North Korean nationals working abroad will have to return home within 24 hours. The previous report that I did yesterday said 12 hours, but 24 months. The previous report I said was 12 months. They seem to have extended it to 2 years, which means that all North Koreans who are working abroad need to return home within 2 years. And there will be a ban on exports of North Korean goods such as machinery and electrical equipment. Sanctions that were already in place include the measures targeting the North Korean shipping operations and Chinese companies that trade with Pyongyang. The UN also approved new sanctions following North Korea's nuclear test on the 3rd of September. These measures restricted oil imports and banned textile exports, an attempt to starve the North of fuel and income for its weapons testing. The US has been imposing sanctions on North Korea for more than a decade with little success. On the 30th of November, the UN targeted North Korea's valuable coal trade with China, slashing exports by 60%. Under a new sales cap, exports of copper, nickel, silver, zinc, and the sale of statues were also banned. On the 14th of May 2017, following that, North Korea tested what it said was a newly developed ballistic rocket capable of carrying a large nuclear warhead. And on the 2nd of June, the UN imposed more sanctions, a travel ban and an asset freeze on 4 entities and 14 officials, including the head of North Korea's overseas spying operations. And then on the 4th of July, in response to that, North Korea claimed it carried out its first successful test of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Then the UN banned North Korea exports of more coal, oil, ore, and other raw materials and limited investments in the country, costing Pyongyang an estimated $1 billion, about a third of its export economy. And then on the 3rd of September, North Korea said it tested a hydrogen bomb that would be miniaturized and loaded on a long-range missile. It doesn't say it here, but then on the 15th of September, they did their ICBM test. Following that, there was more sanctions, and then there was that long break where they said they'd if they waited for 2 months without doing anything, then they could open negotiations. North Korea did wait for 2 months, although we don't know if they were doing that in response to what was offered or whether they were just preparing to launch their next missile, which they did on November the 29th. And now we have more UN sanctions being imposed on North Korea, this now being December the 22nd. So you can see there's been a long history of UN sanctions, North Korea testing, UN sanctions, North Korean testing. That's a tongue twister. But it hasn't really slowed them down. So obviously they're getting where they need to get to, regardless of how many sanctions are being put in place. Now today's sanctions, obviously, as I mentioned, attacks their oil, their petrol, and forces their nationals to return home within 24 months, which is a vital source of their currency. And I'm thinking that might be a red line for Kim Jong-un. I haven't read any reports about any responses from the North Korean regime at the moment, but I would expect that they would say something. But then again, if whatever they plan to do, whether it's rhetoric that comes through the KCNA, the state media news network, or whether it's an actual test or whether it's a real world event, I don't know what their response is going to be at this moment. I can guess, and those are the 3 guesses that I just gave you, but I don't know exactly what's going to happen. But there's definitely going to be some form of response from North Korea, either rhetoric, a missile test, or an actual attack. Only God knows. But what captures me about everything, all the reports that I'm reading at this time, the time that we're talking about from, December 21st on through to the new year, and, possibly and most likely into 2018 when a new currency comes and everything like that. Um, Donald Trump has just signed the tax bill, as we know, and now he's gone for a 10-day trip to Mar-a-Lago, and that's in Florida. So he'll be there until January the 1st, which, again, I find interesting because that's the time scale we're kind of looking at right up until New Year's Day, and he'll be there until New Year's Day. And then I started thinking about the iPet Goat video, and I was just thinking if Bush also represents Donald Trump in this scene, if the D on his hat does kind of allude to Donald Trump at the same time, the school that Bush was in on 9/11 is the Emma E. Booker Elementary School. There it is down there, Emma E. Booker Elementary School, and that's in Florida. And Trump has just gone to Mar-a-Lago, which is over here in Florida. And if the time frame that we're looking at, where everything seems to be coinciding, is correct, then it appears that he's in the correct location. He's in the right state. If this video actually does reference geographically where this Donald Trump representation is, then he's in Florida at the moment after just passing the tax cuts, after the UN just imposed new sanctions on North Korea. And I remember reading a report, and I think I told you guys in the yesterday's report, that North Korea said if there was a naval blockade or more sanctions, then basically that's a red line for them, and it would mean war. The whole fire and fury and destruction talk that comes out of Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. But this time it could be for real. It could be serious. This is where kind of getting into the boy who cried wolf kind of scenario. You shout so many times that there's danger, and then there actually is. It's hard to get people to listen and to believe you. But at the same time, I just want to put down a little marker here to say this all seems to be referenced in this video. I talked about the UN yesterday, and obviously the UN today doing their vote. And then looking at the video, if this part in the video, this scene here with the boy and the uranium in his eye, that's the uranium going off there. Next comes markets, Plunge. I did speak yesterday about how I believe that the Uranium One investigation being revived by Jeff Sessions just yesterday, within the time frame that we're kind of looking at, I felt like that was related to this video, and I still feel that way. In the days to come, we'll see if the reference was correct. But the next part is the market's plunge, and I feel strongly that the Dow Jones hitting its 70th record close of 2017 on Monday is part of the process of plunging the markets. It seems like everything is going good, but that's where you get the bubble bursting. History has shown us how the economy always peaks before it crashes, and obviously that just makes sense, but it really takes a sharp peak before it crashes. And I've seen that on one of the media outlets. They showed like a graphic that showed the number of years and the relation to the stock market going up and then crashing. And it seems obviously the market's just hit like its 70th record of 2017. And that's what they've been talking about. Economy has been going up and up and up. And then Trump signs this tax bill that a lot of people think is more directed towards the rich. And then we have today a report saying that the Bitcoin prices plunged below 13,000 on Friday, capping a stunning 24 hours in which the digital currency lost as much as 25% of its value, according to the data from Coindesk.com. Prices, which had approached 20,000 as recently as Sunday, bounced back to trade around 14,000 by mid-morning in London. The turbulence comes on the back of a few days of bad news for Bitcoin, which has still soared by more than 1,300% since the start of the year. So the Bitcoin, which I already spoke about in the iPad Goat video as well, where I believe that the Obama foot and the pound coin, kind of reference Bitcoin and still Bitcoin, which North Korea did just in the last couple of days. It kind of, I feel like it's foreshadowing a possible plunge in the actual, market, the money that we currently use at the moment. And obviously, I believe that Bitcoin is going to be the next currency, or something similar to Bitcoin is going to be the next currency that's being used. And then I looked up CEOs stepping down. I was watching CNN. Some of you don't like that, but there you go. I was watching CNN and they was talking about the CEO of Papa John's stepping down. And then I started thinking about Harvey Weinstein and all the other people that have been accused of sexual harassment over the last couple of weeks, maybe months. And I started thinking about it relating to the market. And if the markets were going to plunge, then rich people would want to kind of get out with the money they've got. So I typed in CEO stepping down on Google, and here we have the former Google CEO, Eric Schmidt, is stepping down. That report came out yesterday. It's Google without the E, which is the parent company of Google. So he's stepping down. And then you've got the Papa John's CEO stepping down. You've got Vivo CEO stepping down, and that's on the 15th of December. So these are all recent reports. The Horizon Air CEO stepping down. John Skipper of ESPN stepping down. Airbus CEO stepping down. Blue Apron CEO stepping down. Tumblr CEO stepping down. The ATM machine maker Diebold CEO stepping down. Dish Network CEO stepping down, and this is all within December. The Soylent Shake-Up co-founder steps down as CEO. I don't know that company, but you can see that how many CEOs are stepping down. POS Malaysia plunges on news, CEO stepping down. Chipotle founder stepping down. Artemis CEO stepping down. Why are they all stepping down now? Tumblr. I mean, Pavilion Energy. I mean, you could just keep going through the reports and you're seeing all these CEOs stepping down at a time when the market is doing, supposedly doing so great. I mean, why are they all stepping down in this kind of time frame, from like November through to December? Like a lot of them, obviously not all of them, but a lot of them are stepping down. And you have to wonder why that is. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's pretty much all the report. I hope it was easy to follow and that you understand what I'm saying and how it relates to the possible next step after uranium. Maybe the uranium isn't the Uranium One deal. Maybe it's referring to something else that maybe is still yet to come. But considering it's plonked itself right in the time frame that we're looking at, I'm counting that as the Uranium One deal is the uranium in the boy's eye. Then the market's plunge may come at this time where the markets just hit, the Dow Jones just hit a 70th record high. Trump has just signed a massive tax bill, but CEOs are stepping down all over the show. And either something from the retaliations of North Korea associated with the UN sanctions that have just been placed that may cause the markets to plunge, and then war coverage because, the United States has just been attacked. So that's my train of thought. I feel like it links cohesively together. Yeah, thanks for listening. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and God bless you all.